years. Long time. Think about it. Next year, we will have to form an anniversary committee for our 70th. And we'll talk about that because I do want to get dates down. Our bishops fill up their calendars very quickly. So I definitely want to know where we're going, what we're going to do. We may be able to find a different place in the state of Wales, which may be a little bit more beneficial for us. But we'll see. We'll see what anybody thinks and where we want to go and what we want to do. But it is, I want to take a little more time to prepare. I already have them on alert up at Peter and Paul that next year we're going to start again because of the simple fact it will be their 100th anniversary. Dover will be 20 years. 20? Yeah, 20. Yeah. So again, we'll be trying to get all these, so that means next year I'll have the bishops at least 3 times, which is always a pleasure. It really is. I see them all the time, but it's good for our people to see them as well. So that'll be a nice thing in that anniversary year. I'm not saying they won't be here in between. I'm sure they will. They're already 20 years and we've been off. So I said, come down, come to it, come to it. Don't work. I don't care. And if he gives me an advance notice, I'll take off on vacation. He could take it, it makes sense. He won't do that. He can take care of the place. So we work from there. So it is, it's a blessing for us as we continue to move on. We have to admit, our parish is, and if you read the history, and there's one extra book back there, I will be updating that, getting copies out to everybody. It's a black and white picture. They were the later editions that we did. We will be updating that book so that you know exactly what's going on. But if you think about it, from the time the church was started, it was a full-blown parish. It did have a full-time priest. It did have liturgy all the time. They had a choir of 15 or 20 people. They had about 75, I think it was, at the height of the church here. And then it dwindled. And then before Father Jerry and Father Mark and I came, they were having liturgy maybe twice a year. That was it, if they could get a priest to come in. So it was just a very difficult and fallow period for the church, although the church was never closed. And then actually Steve, the person that actually bought the church and signed it over to the parish, kept pressuring the Archbishop, when can we get a priest, when can we get a priest, so that's what happens, sometimes that works. So we've been open for the past, I'm here 16 years, 16 in Dover and 21 Wilmington. It's kind of hard to believe. So that's why I'm ready to retire. When you add them all together, it's like, wow, the priesthood years just kind of got out. I think it's an important reality for us to remember that. Today is a day to give thanks to God for allowing us to celebrate here. And I think All Saints' Day is kind of a neat day to celebrate it as well. Only because of the simple fact that so many times, we kind of look at the fact of our own sinfulness, but we forget about the fact that each and every one of us are called to be saints. Why do you think we have the icon screen? Why do we have the icons around it? Well, you're kind of heavy, more loaded with Christ and Mother of God. But there are some saints, such as Alex's grandfather, right? Your grandfather, who was a martyr during communist times. He was a priest in Ukraine, killed by the Bolsheviks, right? Killed by the communists. And he was canonized by the Russian Orthodox Church. And so it is an icon that we have there, and it reminds us that each and every one of us is called to be a saint. One of the big things that most people say, well, I really don't do anything in my life. I don't do any big things. I don't go out and cure people, or I don't go out and feed the multitudes, or I don't go out and do any of the big miracles that Christ and the apostles did. So how am I going to become a saint? And I think one of the greatest gifts at one time that really kind of focused my attention is that we are all called to do the best we can with the talents God has given us. That's the whole idea of the talents, right? Each and every one of us has talents and we are to use for the glory of God. And again, I always remember a priest friend of mine who was great at carpentry, really great at carpentry. And he really felt bad at one time. He said to me, Steve, he said, I feel closer to God when I have a saw and a hammer in my hand than I do sometimes even at the altar. But it was his talent. It was his bliss. It was something he offered all the time, making sometimes things for church, sometimes things for other people that couldn't afford, God bless you, to make them for himself. You know, it was that which he did in order to give thanks to God for the gift that he had given him. And one of the things that I think I have in here at one time, the relics of the great saints of the Church.Sermon. And it's amazing. One of them was a prosperity. All he did was bake the church bread so that liturgy could be celebrated. And they used this bread as well. They blessed it, and they fed the pilgrims. If you were hungry, you got a little loaf of bread, so you could eat something. And he was proclaimed a great saint because he did it with great diligence. He did it out of love for God. One of the other ones was the gatekeeper. He was the guy that let you in and out. And it was really kind of neat when we were in the Holy Land because they had nuns in the various monasteries, and they were gatekeepers. They looked out, made sure that everything was kosher, and then they would let you in. It was really, really an interesting thing. But this saint did his job with all due diligence and love of God. He was very kind to the pilgrims that were coming through. And so he was proclaimed a saint. God sanctified him. And so, my dear friends, it's not that we have to do great things in our lives. It's that we have to do the things with diligence and with love of God and neighbor. That is really the basis for us being saints. And you got to remember, in the New Testament, St. Paul, in his time, they called people saints all the time. All the time. To remind us of the lives we are to live. And maybe if we called each other saints, maybe it would help us to live our lives a little better. So the saints weren't the dead, they were also the living. So, my dear friends, let us look into our hearts. And as we celebrate this Day of All Saints, you know, it always reminds me of, there was the Archbishop of the Metropolitan Police Square was giving a talk in Villanova about icons and exactly what icons were and yada, yada, yada. And one of the gentlemen got up and he said, you know, Your Eminence, he said, I have a picture of my parents in my bedroom. He said, I see them every morning and I see them before I go to bed at night. He said, and I kiss that picture every morning and every night. He said, could that be an icon? So His Eminence looked at him and he said, were they good people? He said, yeah. Good parents? Yeah. Have a nice marriage? Yeah, whatever that means. Then absolutely it could be an icon. That's why we celebrate today. The saints that we don't know are those that we venerate. Our family members, friends that live good lives, holy lives, that try their best in the pursuit of finding a spiritual life. So, my dear friends, I hope and prayers that each and every one of you one day, your portrait will be up here on the icon screen, you know, so we can venerate, you know, each and every one of you for the life that you lived dedicated to God. Let us all say